My name is Dr. Audrey Larkwell, and I want to start with something that I believe most women over 40 have experienced, but very few have had properly explained to them. The mirror moment. You know the one. You are getting dressed, a normal morning, nothing unusual, and you catch a glimpse of your midsection, and something stops you. Not a dramatic change, not something that appeared overnight, but something that has been quietly building. The waist that looks different from the waist you remember. The belly that is softer in the middle than it used to be. The area just below the navel that holds a fullness you cannot quite explain. And you stand there for a moment. Not long, but long enough for the thought to arrive. What is happening to my body? And right behind that thought, almost always, comes the other one. What am I doing wrong? I need you to hear something clearly before we go any further. You may not be doing anything wrong. You may be doing almost everything the same as you always have. And your body may still be changing in ways that have nothing to do with your discipline, your willpower, or your character. Because after 40, and particularly during perimenopause and menopause, the female body undergoes a metabolic transition so significant, so systemic, and so poorly explained that millions of women spend years blaming themselves for something that was never about self-control. Today, I want to change that conversation. I want to explain what is actually happening to the waist after 40. I want to explain why the belly behaves differently now, why bloating feels constant and unpredictable, why cravings arrive at the wrong hours and feel impossible to manage, why the metabolism that used to respond to your effort now seems to have its own agenda, and what you can actually do, not to punish the body into submission, but to support it through a transition it was always going to make. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, the belly you've been blaming may start to feel a great deal more understandable. And understanding, in my experience, is where real change always begins. I want to share something personal, because I think it matters that you know I'm not speaking about this from a distance. I was 45 when I first noticed it in my own body. I had spent years counseling women through exactly the experience I'm about to describe. I knew the physiology, I had the clinical background, and I still did not recognize it when it arrived in my own life. The first thing I noticed was the waist. I was not eating more, not moving less, not sleeping worse, though that would come later. But my midsection was changing, not dramatically, but in that particular stubborn, frustrating way that women after 40 know immediately. It was not responding to anything I tried. Then the bloating, that uncomfortable pressure that appeared seemingly at random, after meals that had never bothered me before, on days with no obvious dietary trigger. In the afternoon, without explanation, my abdomen would feel tight and heavy in a way that made me want to change clothes and lie down. I had always had a predictable relationship with my body. I knew what it responded to. I knew how to support it. And suddenly, that knowledge felt unreliable. I remember standing in my kitchen one evening, genuinely confused. Not frightened, not devastated, just confused. Because I was doing the same things and getting different results. That confusion is what drives my work, because what I was experiencing was not a failure. It was a transition, a profound, systemic, hormonal transition that changes the rules for how the female body manages weight, fat distribution, blood sugar, digestion, energy, and cravings. And once I understood those new rules, truly understood them, not just academically, but in my own body, everything changed. That is what I want to give you today. Chronic low-grade stress, which is extremely common in midlife women managing careers, families, aging parents, and the physical changes of hormonal transition, creates a persistent cortisol environment that the gut lives inside every day. The third driver is blood sugar instability. When blood sugar swings, spiking after meals and then dropping quickly, the resulting cortisol response adds to the gut disturbance. And the craving cycle that follows, reaching for more carbohydrates to bring blood sugar back up, often involves the kinds of foods that are most likely to ferment and produce the gas that causes bloating. The fourth is water retention. Hormonal fluctuations during perimenopause can affect how the body manages fluid. Some women experience significant bloating that is not gas-related at all, but fluid retention driven by the hormonal shifts of their cycle or the absence of a predictable cycle. Understanding which driver is primary for you changes the response, and that is why bloating deserves investigation, not just acceptance. The third piece of the picture is the metabolism, and I want to address this with a great deal of care, because the phrase slow metabolism is used so carelessly, so often as a euphemism for I am eating too much, that women have stopped believing it is real. But it is real, and here is what is driving it after 40. The first driver is muscle loss. Muscle tissue is metabolically expensive to maintain. The body burns more calories at rest simply to sustain muscle than it does to sustain fat. After 40, particularly in the absence of deliberate resistance training, muscle mass naturally begins to decline. This is called sarcopenia, and it is universal in aging adults who are not actively working against it. As muscle mass decreases, the body's resting metabolic rate decreases, meaning the body burns fewer calories in a day of normal activity than it used to. Not because of any failure, because the metabolic engine, the muscle, has gotten smaller. The second driver is insulin sensitivity changes. As estrogen declines, insulin sensitivity decreases. A less insulin-sensitive body does not manage glucose as efficiently. More glucose stays in the bloodstream longer. More of it gets stored. The energy crashes that follow create the cravings that lead to the eating patterns that reinforce the belly. The third driver is sleep disruption. Poor sleep, which is almost universal in midlife women, has direct, documented effects on the hormones that govern hunger and fullness. Specifically, it elevates ghrelin, the hunger hormone, and reduces leptin, the satiety hormone. The result is a body that is consistently more hungry, less satisfied, and more likely to reach for calorie-dense foods, all while the metabolism runs less than optimal sleep-driven repair. The fourth driver is chronic stress. Cortisol, persistently elevated in chronically stressed women, drives the storage of visceral fat specifically. It promotes the breakdown of muscle tissue for energy. It increases appetite, particularly for high-calorie, high-sugar foods. And it reinforces every other driver on this list through its systemic effects on hormones, blood sugar, sleep, and gut function. This is the chain that the menopause belly lives inside, not one cause, a system. And the solution has to address the system, not just the symptom. If what I am describing sounds like your experience, the belly that will not respond, the bloating that comes without warning, the metabolism that feels like it has its own rules now, the cravings that appear at the wrong times, the exhaustion that no amount of sleep fully resolves, then the link in the first line of the description below was created for exactly this moment. Inside, you will find the complete natural support approach I am about to describe. Click the first link in the description and keep watching, because the piece I am about to share, the specific natural formula that supports the metabolic picture I have been describing, may be the layer your current approach is missing. Here is what I told myself when I finally understood what was happening in my own body. This is not a discipline problem. This is a support problem. The body after 40 has changed, and what it needs now is not the same as what it needed before. More restriction will not address a redistribution driven by hormonal change. More cardio will not replace the muscle mass that needs resistance training to be preserved. More willpower will not calm a cortisol system that needs genuine stress support. More cutting will not stabilize a blood sugar pattern that needs targeted metabolic support. The body needs a different strategy, one built around what is actually happening: hormonal transition, digestive sensitivity, blood sugar instability, muscle and metabolic support, anti-inflammatory protection, daily consistency over intensity. And that is exactly what the natural daily formula I want to describe addresses, not as a miracle, not as the only thing that needs to change, but as a meaningful, targeted, daily nutritional support layer that addresses the specific metabolic needs of the female body in midlife transition. Clean, plant-based, simple enough to maintain, and built around 8 natural compounds that each speak to a different piece of the pattern. Let me walk you through the 8 compounds in this formula. And as I do, I want you to hear how each one connects specifically to the menopause belly, bloating, and slow metabolism picture I have been describing. The first is green tea extract, specifically its most active compound, EGCG, a catechin that is among the most researched natural antioxidants in the metabolic wellness space. For women navigating the menopause transition, two of green tea extract's research-supported properties are particularly relevant. The first is antioxidant protection. The hormonal changes of perimenopause increase oxidative stress throughout the body. This affects everything from cellular energy production to the inflammatory environment that promotes visceral fat accumulation. Consistent antioxidant support helps the body manage this increased oxidative burden. The second is metabolic support. Green tea catechins have been studied in the context of healthy metabolism, with research exploring their potential role in supporting thermogenesis, the body's production of heat as a byproduct of metabolism. For a metabolism that has slowed with age, muscle loss, and hormonal change, this represents a relevant and evidence-informed natural addition. Important note: green tea extract in concentrated supplement form should always be used as directed. High-dose intake beyond recommended amounts has been associated in some reports with rare liver safety concerns. This is not a reason to avoid it. It is a reason to use a well-formulated, appropriately dosed product responsibly. The second is apple cider vinegar. The acetic acid in apple cider vinegar has been the subject of research exploring its potential effects on post-meal blood sugar response and appetite. For women dealing with the blood sugar instability that drives the craving cycle, the afternoon crash, the nighttime reach for sugar, the cycle that feeds the belly, apple cider vinegar's potential role in moderating the glycemic response to meals is directly relevant. It is not a blood sugar medication. It does not replace medical care for diagnosed metabolic conditions. But as part of a daily routine focused on blood sugar stability and appetite management, it fits the midlife metabolic picture naturally. The third is berberine HCl. Berberine is one of the most compelling plant-derived compounds in the natural metabolic health conversation. It is derived from several plants used in traditional medicine and has been studied extensively for its effects on glucose and lipid metabolism. Meta-analyses have explored berberine's effects on blood sugar markers with meaningful findings. For women whose insulin sensitivity has shifted with estrogen decline, creating the blood sugar swings that drive cravings, energy crashes, and abdominal fat storage, berberine represents a significant natural metabolic support option. Critical note: berberine can interact with medications including diabetes medications, blood thinners, and others. If you take any prescription medications or have a diagnosed metabolic condition, please speak with your healthcare provider before adding berberine to your routine. The fourth is banaba leaf. Banaba leaf contains cortisolic acid, a compound studied for its potential role in glucose metabolism. In traditional wellness practices, banaba has been used in approaches aimed at metabolic balance. And for the midlife woman whose primary metabolic challenge is the blood sugar instability that follows estrogen-related insulin sensitivity changes, banaba brings another botanical layer of support to the formula's metabolic foundation. The fifth is cinnamon bark. Cinnamon has been used in traditional cultures around the world for thousands of years. In the metabolic wellness research space, it has been studied for its potential effects on fasting glucose and insulin sensitivity. Results have been mixed across studies, and it should not be presented as a treatment for diabetes or blood sugar conditions, but as a traditional botanical component of a comprehensive natural formula aimed at blood sugar balance and metabolic support. Cinnamon brings a familiar, warm, and evidence-informed contribution. And for women who find the blood sugar craving cycle most disruptive in the evening, the reach for something sweet after dinner, the inability to step away from the pantry, cinnamon's traditional connection to blood sugar rhythm makes it intuitively fitting. The sixth is ginger root. For the menopause belly conversation specifically, ginger deserves particular attention. Because of everything on this list, ginger speaks most directly to the bloating. Ginger has one of the longest and most consistent records in traditional wellness as a support for digestive comfort. Its active compounds, gingerols and shogols, have been studied for their effects on gut motility, nausea, and digestive inflammation. For midlife women dealing with the slower digestion, increased gut sensitivity, and microbiome shifts that contribute to the bloating pattern, ginger's digestive support properties make it a natural and meaningful addition. Research on ginger and glycemic markers has shown variable results, and it should not be presented as a blood sugar treatment. but as a digestive comfort and gut wellness botanical within a formula designed for the full midlife metabolic picture. Ginger fills a role that none of the other compounds on this list directly address. The woman who carries not just belly fat, but the uncomfortable, unpredictable daily bloating that makes her feel like she does not recognize her own abdomen deserves to have that specific experience addressed. Ginger does that. The seventh is Korean ginseng. Korean ginseng, Panax ginseng, has been used in traditional medicine for centuries, primarily for its adaptogenic properties. Adaptogens are compounds that may help the body respond more resiliently to stress. For midlife women whose cortisol is chronically elevated, driving belly fat, disrupting sleep, inflaming the gut, and feeding the craving cycle, adaptogenic support is not an afterthought, it is central. Beyond its stress resilience properties, Korean ginseng has been studied for its effects on energy, cognitive function, and vitality. For the woman who is exhausted from the metabolic demands of hormonal transition, who wakes up unrestored, drags through the afternoon, and feels like the energy she used to have has simply evaporated, ginseng's traditional and research-supported vitality properties speak directly to her daily experience. The eighth is resveratrol. Resveratrol is a polyphenol found naturally in grapes, berries, and other plant foods. It has been studied extensively for antioxidant activity, anti-inflammatory effects, and metabolic health. In the midlife women's health context, both of these dimensions matter. The hormonal changes of perimenopause drive increased inflammatory activity throughout the body. This inflammation contributes to the visceral fat accumulation, the joint discomfort, the fatigue, the skin changes, and the general physical unease that so many women describe in their 40s and 50s. Resveratrol's antioxidant and anti-inflammatory research profile, including studies exploring its potential connections to insulin sensitivity and metabolic health, makes it one of the most relevant natural compounds for a formula designed around the midlife female metabolic transition. Now I want to show you why these 8 compounds together create something more powerful than any single ingredient could. The menopause belly is not one problem. It is the visible result of a system under pressure. Estrogen-driven fat redistribution toward the abdomen, insulin sensitivity changes driving blood sugar instability and cravings, cortisol elevation from stress and sleep disruption, driving visceral fat accumulation, digestive changes driving the bloating that makes the belly feel larger and more uncomfortable than the fat alone would explain, oxidative stress and inflammation impeding cellular function throughout the metabolic system, reduced energy production making the body feel sluggish, and the motivation to maintain healthy habits harder to sustain. Each of the 8 compounds addresses a specific piece of this system. Green tea extract resveratrol address the oxidative stress and inflammation. Apple cider vinegar, berberine HCl, banaba leaf, and cinnamon bark address the blood sugar instability and insulin sensitivity dimension. Ginger root addresses the digestive sensitivity and bloating component. Korean ginseng addresses the cortisol, stress resilience, and energy dimension. Together, they create a daily nutritional support framework that meets the menopause belly pattern where it actually lives, not just at the surface, at the root. And when the root is consistently supported alongside the lifestyle changes that work with the body's new metabolic rules, the body begins to respond differently. Not dramatically, not overnight, but in the quiet, meaningful way that women describe when they say, "I feel less bloated. My cravings are more manageable. I have more energy in the afternoon. My clothes fit differently. I feel more like myself." That is the goal, not a perfect body, a supported one. I want to tell you about someone. She was 52 when she came to me. She had been dealing with the belly for 4 years. 4 years of trying things that worked briefly and then stopped. 4 years of restriction that left her depleted. 4 years of bloating so predictable and so uncomfortable that she had started choosing her clothes based on which ones hid her abdomen on bad days. 4 years of cravings she blamed on herself. 4 years of low energy she explained as laziness. 4 years of standing in front of the mirror and feeling like she did not recognize the woman she saw. When she described her experience to me, I heard something in every sentence that I recognized from hundreds of similar conversations. She was not describing a discipline problem. She was describing a woman whose body had changed, whose strategy had not changed with it, and who had been given no map for the new territory. We spent time understanding her pattern, the blood sugar swings that were driving her evening cravings, the gut sensitivity that had developed and was making the bloating worse than the weight gain itself, the cortisol pattern, chronic, low-level, relentless, that was feeding the visceral accumulation no amount of calorie reduction was touching, the muscle loss that had been progressing quietly for 4 years while she avoided the gym because she was too tired, and the sleep disruption that was quietly undermining every effort she made during the day. We restructured her approach completely. Not more restriction, more support, protein at every meal, resistance training 3 times a week, gentle at first, then progressive. A consistent daily natural formula addressing blood sugar, inflammation, digestive comfort, and metabolic support. Sleep as a genuine health priority. Stress management as a metabolic intervention, not an optional extra. Evening habits specifically redesigned to reduce the blood sugar swings that had been fueling her nightly cravings, and a conversation with her physician about the full range of evidence-based options for her specific hormonal picture. 6 months later, she told me something that stayed with me. I stopped waging war on my body, and then my body started cooperating with me. That is not a dramatic before and after story. That is a real one. The kind that happens when a woman stops fighting a body that has changed and starts partnering with it. I want to give you the complete picture, because the formula I have described works best as part of a broader approach, not as a substitute for the habits that change the underlying conditions. Here is the new strategy for the body after 40. Protein first, at every meal. Protein supports muscle preservation, which protects resting metabolic rate. It slows glucose absorption, which reduces blood sugar spikes and the cravings that follow. It promotes satiety, which makes the evening craving cycle easier to manage. For the midlife woman dealing with the belly, adequate protein is not optional. It is the single most important dietary shift available. Resistance training, not punishing exercise. Progressive, consistent strength training that tells the body to preserve and build muscle rather than metabolize it. 2 to 3 sessions per week, even 30 minutes each, produce meaningful effects on body composition, insulin sensitivity, and metabolic rate over time. This is the investment in the metabolic engine that no supplement can replace. Sleep protection. Sleep is a metabolic intervention. It regulates the hunger hormones. It allows cortisol to normalize. It supports insulin sensitivity the following day. Every hour of better sleep is directly reflected in the metabolic environment the body operates in. Protecting sleep through consistent schedules, cooler rooms, reduced alcohol, reduced evening screens, and addressing night sweats directly is not a lifestyle luxury. It is metabolic medicine. Stress management. Cortisol is the hormone behind so much of the menopause belly specifically. It is not enough to eat well and exercise if chronic stress is maintaining the cortisol environment that drives visceral fat accumulation. Intentional stress management, whether through breathing practices, time in nature, social connection, creative outlet, or professional support, is a metabolic strategy, not an add-on. Digestive support. For the bloating dimension specifically, several lifestyle adjustments can produce meaningful relief. Eating more slowly and mindfully. Identifying and reducing specific foods that trigger bloating for your individual digestive system. Eating earlier in the evening. Reducing alcohol, which directly worsens gut permeability and bloating. Supporting gut health with fiber, fermented foods, and adequate hydration. And considering probiotic support when gut symptoms are significant. And the daily natural formula. Consistent, plant-based, designed to support the blood sugar, inflammatory, digestive, and metabolic dimensions of the menopause belly pattern that lifestyle alone often cannot fully address. I want to be completely responsible about who this formula is appropriate for. If you have type 2 diabetes or prediabetes and take medication for blood sugar management, please speak with your healthcare provider before adding berberine or any glucose-related supplement to your routine. Some of the compounds in this formula, particularly berberine, can interact with blood sugar medications, blood thinners, and other prescriptions. If you take any prescription medications, please have that conversation first. If you are pregnant or breastfeeding, this formula is not appropriate. If you have liver disease, kidney disease, digestive conditions, or other chronic health issues, please consult your provider. And if your belly changes are accompanied by symptoms that feel medically significant, unexplained rapid weight gain, significant abdominal pain, swelling that does not resolve, or changes accompanied by other systemic symptoms, please seek medical evaluation promptly. Natural support works powerfully within its appropriate domain. Knowing that domain and when to step outside of it into medical care is part of responsible wellness. Before I close, I want to spend a moment on what I believe is the most important dimension of this entire conversation. Not the ingredients, not the mechanism, not even the belly itself, the relationship. The relationship a woman has with her body after 40. Because in my experience, the deepest damage of the menopause belly is not physical. It is the story it creates. I have no discipline. I cannot control myself. I have let myself go. I am not the person I used to be. I do not recognize myself. I have failed. These are the sentences I hear from women who are in fact doing an extraordinary job navigating one of the most significant physiological transitions of their lives, with inadequate information, with inadequate support, and with a cultural narrative that treats every visible change in the female body as a personal moral failure. I want to offer a different narrative. Your belly is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of change. And change, when properly understood and properly supported, is not the end of anything. It is a doorway to a new understanding of your body, to a new strategy that fits the person you are now, to a relationship with your physical self that is built on curiosity and care rather than criticism and control. The woman who understands why her belly has changed stops hating it. She starts asking what it needs. She asks, is this blood sugar driving fat storage? She asks, is this cortisol feeding the belly? She asks, is this gut sensitivity making the bloating worse? She asks, is this muscle loss slowing my metabolism? She asks, what does my body need now, in this season, with these hormones in this life? Those questions are acts of respect toward a body that has been working hard every single day to adapt to profound hormonal change. And when you bring respect instead of war, the body tends to respond. Not immediately, not perfectly, but genuinely. If you have been watching this video and recognizing your own belly, your own bloating, your own slow metabolism, your own cravings, your own tired mornings, in every word, then I have one simple request. Do not leave without taking the next step. The link in the first line of the description below will take you directly to the guide that explains the complete natural daily support routine for the menopause belly. Inside, you will find the 8-compound plant-based formula: green tea, apple cider vinegar, berberine, banaba leaf, cinnamon, ginger, Korean ginseng, and resveratrol. The approach, the lifestyle integration, and the consistent daily practice that works alongside it. And if you are watching later and the description link is hard to find, the same guide is in the pinned comment below. Because every woman who has stood in front of the mirror wondering what happened deserves an answer that is honest. Not a promise, not a shortcut, an honest answer. The belly changed because the body changed. The body changed because the hormones changed. And the hormones changing is not a failure. It is biology, biology that can be understood, and biology that with the right support can be responded to in ways that actually work. You can feel less bloated. You can have more steady energy. You can find the cravings more manageable. You can support the metabolism your body has now, not the one you had at 35. You can rebuild a relationship with your body that is built on understanding instead of blame. And it starts with one consistent daily step. Click the first link in the description. This is Dr. Audrey Larkwell. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. If this video gave you a clearer picture of what has been happening to your body after 40 than anything you have heard before, please subscribe to this channel. Every week I share the honest science, the practical strategies, and the emotional context that allow women to navigate midlife with more knowledge, more support, and more of the confidence they deserve. Because menopause is not the end of feeling good in your body. It is the beginning of learning a new way to support it. And that new way starts with understanding, which you now have.